On the morning of July 11, 1996, construction workers in Knoxville, Tennessee, found the body of a 31-year-old man in an unfinished hotel parking lot. He had been beaten to death and was discovered half naked, stripped from the waist down. The autopsy recorded the brutal physical reality of the assault. The cause of death was sepsis, triggered by a violent blow that ruptured his stomach. His arms were covered in abrasions from fending off an attack, and his fingers still gripped a single long strand of hair. Investigators looked for a motive, but the scene lacked the hallmarks of a standard highway robbery. Despite the violence, the killer ignored a substantial amount of untraceable wealth. Scattered across the dirt were thousands of dollars in global currency, including a significant amount of German Deutschmarks. Mixed in with the European money were hundreds of Canadian dollars, all left lying in the open. Just inches from his body sat an unzipped fanny pack. Inside, police found $2,000 worth of solid gold bars, platinum coins, and jewelry. This creates the central mystery of the case. Why would an attacker take the time to beat a man and remove his clothing, only to walk away from a fortune left in the dirt? To find the origin of that money, investigators looked back 1 week to July 5th in Surrey, British Columbia. The victim was identified as Blair Adams, a construction foreman who had suddenly become convinced that someone was trying to kill him. This intense fear drove Blair to empty his entire bank account and safe deposit box. This is where he acquired the specific collection of cash and gold that would later be found scattered around his body. Over the next few days, Blair made a series of frantic, failed attempts to cross the border into the United States. Border officials repeatedly denied him entry. To them, an agitated man traveling alone with thousands in cash and gold and a history of drug and assault charges matched the profile of a drug trafficker. Being blocked at the border seemed to escalate his state of alarm. His behavior shifted from simple concern to the erratic, high-stress actions of a man who believed he was being hunted. Blair finally crossed the border on his 3rd attempt. He rented a Nissan Altima and drove immediately to the Seattle airport. His travel choices became increasingly illogical. He purchased a $1,600 round-trip ticket to Germany, only to refund it hours later in favor of an expensive one-way flight to Washington, D.C. He arrived on the East Coast early Wednesday morning and immediately swapped his rental for a Toyota Camry. From D.C., he drove 500 miles southwest to Knoxville, Tennessee, a city where he had no known contacts and no professional reason to visit. These sudden international bookings, immediate cancellations, and long-distance drives show a man attempting to be as unpredictable as possible. Once in Knoxville, Blair's behavior suggested he was losing his grip on reality. At a gas station, he insisted he was locked out of his car, attempting to start his new Toyota with the keys to the Nissan he had abandoned back in Seattle. Later that evening, CCTV at a Fairfield Inn captured Blair pacing the lobby 5 times in less than an hour. He was constantly checking over his shoulder, watching the entrance for a threat that no one else could see. His final known act was paying $100 in cash for a room. He walked away without his change, pocketed the key, and left the building. He never returned to use the room. This combination of hallucinating the wrong car key and abandoning his only safe haven suggests an escalating psychotic break. At this point, his perception of the world had likely shattered. The investigation sits at the intersection of 2 conflicting datasets. Blair's actions, the frantic travel and the confusion over the keys, suggest a man fleeing a threat that existed only in his mind. However, the physical evidence in Knoxville is undeniable. The ruptured stomach, the defensive wounds, and the witness who heard a scream all prove that Blair Adams was eventually met by a very real, very physical violence. One hypothesis suggests that Blair's erratic, paranoid behavior inadvertently led to a deadly encounter with a stranger at a highway truck stop, a random collision between a man in crisis and a violent opportunist. But the untouched fortune left in the dirt supports a more chilling possibility. If robbery wasn't the motive, it suggests that his fear was justified, and his pursuer eventually found him. The Knox County cold case remains unresolved because of this paradox. Whether Blair Adams was running from a psychological collapse or a real assassin, both paths ended in the same parking lot.